In this tutorial, we'll explain how to make a project main menu using Scaleform Studio. First, let's open up the Studio editor. And import our images for our project. You could also drag and drop these images. So for instance, if I delete that, either into the asset browser or onto the stage. Now let's set up our stage properties. First, we want to drag the image to our stage so we know exactly what size it needs to be. The background image is here in the properties window, 2731 by 1536. Here in the projects tab on the right, we'll add that to the stage width, and then 1536 for the stage height. We'll keep the frames per second to 30. Going back here, we'll press this button here in the properties panel. We'll enable ref point and pivot position. Currently it's set to pivot position by default, which is this circle in the center. Ref position is the upper left-hand corner, which is the plus symbol. Turn that on. Type 0, 0, and we'll align it to the upper left of the stage. Next, we're going to put this into an animation. To do that, we right-click, create animation, and it will bag basically the image in a component, animation component, which includes a timeline. We'll name this actor main menu. And now, if you double-click inside, you'll have the image we originally had. We'll name it background. And it exists on a timeline. Next, what we'll do is we'll create a button using the widget creator, which is here on the right. Select that tab and select button. Give it a name. We'll give it start underscore button for our start button. And we'll give a label of start game. Select the image you want to use. And then we need to give it a size. And currently, the size of the button is, if we look at the properties window, 732 by 172. So we'll copy those values, paste them in, and hit this plus button to create it. And there's our button. Now we have to tweak it some because the text field is a bit small. So to do that, double click inside of it, and you'll have two layers, label, background, and the states, normal, over, pressed, and disabled, which are listed here. So on the first frame, we'll go to label, zoom in here, and we'll select our label, and we'll change the size to, say, 72. We'll change, we'll remove the tint to none, and here's the color for it. It's white already, so that the tint is just is a style effect which you can apply a color tint to any actor. And when the widget is created by default, it applies a tint to every frame. We'll just remove all that. So first, let's reposition it because it doesn't look centered. So we'll change the Y to say 32. And we'll change maybe the height so that the bounds doesn't extend past the button to say 110. This controls the bounds of the text field. If you were to change the size here, it would change the size of the actual actor itself. And we'll do that to all of the states. Remove the tint. And it should all be the same throughout the entire states. Now we go back out. Here's your navigation. If you hit main menu, you'll come back out. And you noticed when we created this widget that it created a button widget script and a start button handler script, along with importing the assets for the fonts. Now, why don't we test this button? First, we have to save our project. So we'll save as, and we'll come out here and we'll type in, this is for our pin bowling main menu. Save. And what that will do is create a directory with your project named pin bowling. And in run, move to configure your player. And we'll navigate to where that is. Currently, mine is in Visual Studio. But if you go out to S2D Editor, is where your editor lives. If you go out to Player, Bin, Windows, Visual Studio 64, OpenGL, Release, you navigate to the exe for the player, open, and then simply hit Run or Control Enter. Now our content is bigger than the screen size, but if you double click, it'll scale properly and we can test our button. And if we open the log here for the player, let's make this smaller here. You can see when we press it, we'll get a start button clicked action. So our button works. So let's create another button for quit game. And we'll go back to our button widget creator and give it a name, quit _ button, and a label of quit game. And we can either create a new one this way, or we can simply copy this button. Now, since we made some edits to this button, it's probably best that we actually copy this button then rather than create a new button. So why don't we hit Control-C, Control-V, give a unique name, quit _ button, and inside of it, we can rename it to quit game. And that'll propagate to all the frames currently. Let's save it. And now currently, they both use the same script, start button, handler. What we need to do is we need to duplicate this, just like we duplicated the button. So if we open this up in Explorer, pin bowling, and we'll copy this. And rename it to quit button handler. And in here, we will select the new script. And if you ever want to review the scripts, you can simply double-click any of them, and it will open up a script editor. So let's test this out by saving it, Control-S, or just simply running it, and it will prompt you to save. quit button clicked, start button clicked. Now, let's create animations for this menu startup. We'll do that here with the timeline down here below. And what we'll do is first we'll create frames here at 30. We do that by either right-clicking F5 or F6. We'll create a keyframe. First, we'll just simply create a frame, and then hit F5, hit F5. So our timeline is 30 frames in length, which is 1 second, because our project here settings is 30 frames a second. We can increase that length by simply hitting F5 here to make it either 60, 2 seconds long. So let's first move these buttons from, say, the bottom of the screen. We'll create a keyframe here at, and let's stagger them. So we'll create a keyframe here at 10, and then another at 20, and then for start button, 10. And then here, we'll move, quit, and start by selecting them both, moving them down, and we'll do the same thing for frame 10 for just quit. And if we want to line them up correctly, simply we can actually clear this keyframe by hitting Shift F6 or remove keyframe, and it will get the position of the first frame, and then we can just hit F6 again. It's a quick shortcut. And to give it an animation, we go here to the tween section, transition, select sine, because we want this to be a smooth transition. And we'll select an out. Out basically will start fast and then slow down. We'll do the same thing for start button, sine, ease out. And if we scrub this, you should see that the buttons should slowly ease into their positions. We can save this and run it again. And you can see the animations run. You hit Control R to reset, but currently it's constantly looping because there's no stop at the end. And to do that, what we'll do is on frame 30, we'll put a action, stop, and that should stop the animation from looping. Now let's add our title, Pin Bowling. And our position, the final position of it, I think we'll probably put it like right there. Let's see. Maybe a little higher. Like that. First we need to bag this because we're going to do a sub animation for our ball. So let's create an animation. And that will place our image in another component. Animation component. Let's rename this the title. And let's position its final position here. Frame 10. And first frame, we'll move it down some. And let's put another sign and out. So when this thing moves in, it should do that. Now if we wanted to shift so it didn't look like it was overlapping that start button, what we have to do is currently move functionality is not implemented, so what we'll do is simply create a keyframe here at, say, 30 for the quit button, 20 for the start button. Remove this key. Remove this key. Add that key back again by hitting F6. And add this key back again by hitting F6. And then removing this key. And what we'll do is we'll simply remove the animation here by setting it to none. So what that'll do is it'll start a little later after our title moves in. What we could also do is even move the title perhaps here, with this keyframe. Yeah, I like that. Okay. And so inside of here, let's add our title ball for the eye. Just position it somewhere. And we'll do a bounce for us. First, let's name this so we don't confuse ourselves. Ball. And we want to bounce it. So first, we don't want the bounce to start right away, so let's put a action stop. And frame 10, we'll move it into Y. So we want it to go up, so let's give it a number, say maybe 10. Y of 10, because basically the position is based off of the registration point currently. So from here to here, it's only 10 pixels high. From here to here, it's 572 width-wise. But so, and then what we'll do is we want it to come back down. So what we can do is grab the position of this Y, 45. So when we create a new keyframe here, we'll give half the frames, say it drops into 15. So we'll create a keyframe there, paste it, and then half that, we'll do 18 here. Goes back up some. Well, we gave it 10, so let's just do maybe 20. And half that, do a keyframe here, where it comes back down. And then another keyframe here, where it goes back up a little bit. We'll say maybe 40. And then another one here, back to its original position. And then what we can do is we can do a multi-select by simply click dragging all the frames that we want to animate between, and say we want to animate from all the way here to here. And we'll do another sign. And what we want is we want an out only on when it goes up. So an ease out on the up. This is a down, so it's fine. This is an up. This is a down. And since these are one frame, it doesn't matter. One frame between each keyframe. And so if we save it, let's put a stop here. And first we need to add a label, because what we're going to do is we're going to call this frame, and we'll put a label, play ball. And once this reaches its apex, we will call play ball, and it's in title. So title is the name of our object that we want to call, and it's a label, not an index. I mean, you could put an index 0, but for here, we'll just play ball. And if you save it and run it, there you go. Our little animation. Repeat with Control R. Now, of course, this ball is a little slow for my taste. We could have probably done it much quicker. And that's it. We're done.